So welcome everyone. This is the March 20th regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Safety and Transportation Committee agenda. Sorry, I'm reading my agenda. Regular meeting. And with us at the start of the meeting are committee members Bixby from Ward 6, Lucas from Ward 2, Greenberg from Ward 1, and Wright from Ward 3. Which is more than a quorum. We are also joined by Councillor Lebovitz from Ward 6, also in the room with Councillor Bixby, our COO, Jonathan Yo, our DPW Commissioner, Jim McGonigal, our Transportation Director, Ned Codd, and Transportation Engineer, Adrian Ayala. Am I missing anyone? And then we have some participants. For those of you who are participants, in other words, you can't see other people that might be here besides the 10 of us. The city has moved to webinar format because of some unfortunate Zoom bombing incidents, including in this committee. This is not a public hearing, and we are not necessarily taking public comment tonight. You do have something to add. Of course, you can email the committee. Of course, we will all read your emails. You can also email the whole city council. And you can raise your hand and we will consider whether we're taking public comment. If you have a few people who have raised their hands, and then, just hang on, I'll recognize you and we'll get you into as a participant so that you can speak, not just listen, but I wouldn't count on it. This is not our normal format here. Our normal format is it's a public meeting. You can watch it, you can comment on it by email, or you can call one of us afterwards. Okay, we were just joined by Councillor Lipoff, member of the committee from Ward 8. And Director Heath from the Planning Department. So that brings us up to a nice even 12. So we'll start with item 12724. Councilors Block, Bixby, Getz, Farrell, Lebovitz, Greenberg, Laredo, Mickley, Lucas, Danberg, and Malachy requesting a discussion to review traffic data collected by the Department of Public Works. I'm going to add in the other two items. I think they can all be discussed together. So that's also 12524. Councilor Grossman requesting a discussion with DPW and planning regarding traffic calming prioritization, selection of methods, effectiveness of completed projects, pending requests, adequacy of current funding and personnel, and timetable for addressing pending and new requests at current resource levels. This is a recurring item that we have to just keep track of our traffic calming, the budget and process and progress. Safety is in our remit. And then 12824, Councilors Block, Lebovitz, and Farrell requesting a discussion to discuss a citywide traffic analysis. So we have traffic data, traffic analysis, and traffic calming. We'll take those all at the same time. I'm assuming members of the committee and other councilors have not only read the agenda, but gone a little deeper and read the backup material, which is excellent. So I'm not expecting to get that regurgitated to us, but I am expecting some questions or suggestions about what might be missing here. So who would like to start presenting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ned, our Transportation Director, is going to start with the traffic calming because that may answer some of the questions, especially for the councilors that are new with us.
Excellent idea. Welcome, Ned.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for having us here tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with the traffic calming report. So as Councilor Downs noted, we sent this out in advance of the meeting tonight. And hopefully you had a chance to at least take a look. And I think this report provides a pretty good summary of a lot of the important data that some of which we collect ourselves, some of which we access from other sources, and how we use it to understand traffic impacts, transportation needs in all different modes. The particular focus of the traffic calming report is identifying roads where speed and volume and demand for pedestrian access or bicycle access, proximity of pedestrian and bicycle destinations makes it desirable to, in many cases, slow traffic down if it is exceeding the speed limit, and getting drivers to take a little bit more care as they proceed through these the streets of Newton. So the approach that we take, the traffic calming program and the prioritization that we do for improvements is request driven. When we get requests in for it may be specifically for a traffic calming assessment, or it may be, a particular issue that is not sort of readily and easily addressed through improved signage or striping or something like that. We will we'll put it into the traffic calming program as a candidate location for receiving these traffic calming improvements. And then each year we will collect and compile data, and that the data that we use is data on traffic volume and speeds, along with the crash history along that segment of roadway, and an assessment of pedestrian demand in that corridor. We analyze the data, and then we apply sort of a ranking system, a prioritization system, where we assign points to those different factors, and then we sort of rank the prioritization based on those, and then identify candidate projects for improvements. And again, the first two metrics that we use are the vehicle volumes and the difference between the speed that we measure on the roadway and the roadway speed limit. These two data points we actually collect ourselves. We have radar traffic counting machines that Adrian, who's with us, will go out and install and take several days worth of data to make sure that we get a good representation, 48 or 72 hours worth of data from the middle of the week. We find that to be the most useful. And So we give points, 2 points for every 1,000 vehicles along that stretch of roadway, and we give we give points based on the difference between the speed limit and what's known as the 85th percentile speed. So we measure the speed that every single car or truck, every vehicle going past that counting point. We measure everyone's speed, and we kind of basically we line up the data, and the speed at which 85% of those vehicles are under that speed. That's what's known as the 85th percentile speed, and that's it's an important speed in the sort of traffic engineering world, because that's it's what's known as kind of the prevailing speed, where that's the speed that a typical driver might be expected to drive on that roadway, and kind of beyond 85th percentile, you start getting, very fast drivers, and they're kind of more outliers. So that's the metric that we use, and we assign points based on the ratio, based on the differential of that that speed. Then the next measures that we use are the crash occurrence and severity, as well as the incidence of non-motorist vulnerable user crashes, and a crash rate, sort of a regularized crash rate based on the volume, so that we're not sort of overcounting, overweighting high volume streets. And we assign points based on those metrics as well. The metrics that we assign to crash occurrence and severity are based upon the MassDOT weightings that they use for their highway safety improvement program. So we thought it would be good to follow their lead on that. Plus, we added an extra 20 points where it was a vulnerable road user crash, which vulnerable road user is defined as someone who's basically not on the inside of a motor vehicle. So pedestrians, bicyclists, persons with using mobility aid devices, scooters. So we assign points based on those metrics, and then we do an assessment that for the, and just as a note, for the crash history, we use the MassDOT crash data portal, which gets its data in turn from Newton Police Department. So they report to MassDOT. MassDOT keeps a statewide crash database that we can get data from. And then for basically pedestrian demand, we make use of the city's GIS system, and we do an analysis of the proximity of the roadway to pedestrian generators, and we assign points based on sort of relative importance of those to the traffic calming exercise, with schools rating the highest, village centers, and then transit stations, parks, bus stops, and we also identified a number of other, kind of other pedestrian generators, higher education institutions, libraries, community centers, that sort of thing. We also added 10 points for sidewalk clearance routes, because we recognize those as being sort of very important, kind of long distance pedestrian transportation routes. We also provide a very high level review of what we're talking about when we talk about traffic calming measures. Those can be sort of roadway redesign improvements, like narrowing the roadway with bump outs. Those are to shorten pedestrian crossing distances, improve pedestrian visibility, and also give drivers sort of a psychological cue that the road is narrower and they should go slower. There's also vertical measures. One particular measure that we have found to be very effective in Newton is a raised table intersection, which has a fairly gradual ramp up for vehicles to the intersection, which is at the level of the sidewalk, so pedestrians can cross level, and it signals to drivers that this is, it's an important, shared area, and that they should slow down. Those have been very effective. Other measures include parking management and sightline management at corners, kind of what's known also as daylighting, where you prohibit parking close to intersection corners where there are sightline challenges. There's also measures like road diets, like what is proposed for the Washington Street pilot, where roads are narrowed down, lanes that are not strictly necessary for traffic capacity are eliminated in favor of things like additional parking or wider sidewalks, bike lanes, and then there's also more dynamic and noticeable traffic regulatory signs, like rectangular rapid flashing beacons, those flashing yellow lights that we have at some intersections, the flashing lights for school zones, and based on all of this analysis, we score and rank all of these different projects, and we identify what are the priorities. These are some of the projects that were rated highly in the past, and that have been, many of these projects have been completed, and many of them are currently ongoing. And we've also identified what we think are the priorities for moving forward with new traffic calming projects. And we've actually been able to do a pretty large number of traffic calming projects that we have either recently completed or currently under construction or in design, thanks to additional ARPA funding that we've been able to access through the Recovery Act funding. And this is the top 25 of the our 2024 ranking for potential future projects.
So Ned, thank you so much. I should have mentioned Ned is a fairly recent hire. And so he's given you history that he hasn't yet lived through. and so that's a very quick study. Not a number of us on this committee are fairly new to this process and this presentation. So I wanted to break for a moment to make sure that everybody on the committee and other counselors who are listening in have a chance to ask questions and understand, and so that I'm sure that they understand what you just said. So if you can stop sharing for a moment, and anyone who has a question, you can raise your physical or your virtual hand, and just let me know, if there's something here you want to, first of all, get clarity on. And second of all, what are your questions? What other priorities should we be adding into this? Concerns, comments, that sort of thing. So let's start with questions. Everybody clear on the concepts? '85th percentile. Okay, Alan, Councilor Lebowitz.
So I'm assuming the ARPA money is now spent or will be spent by the end of this year. How do you budget for the priority list? How does that work?
I think that's a question for our COO.
I can respond.
Yeah, Commissioner
better.
can go into that. Yeah.
Yeah, currently there's $350,000 a year in our operating budget for traffic calming.
And maybe your next question is a follow-up as to how adequate that is, Councilor Lebowitz.
Well,
Not that
of
I'm
course,
coaching you.
as you see the list, I believe there's 181 projects currently on our traffic calming list. This didn't even exist 5 years ago. So you can see how this has grown. And there is a lot of work to do throughout the city. We also include these when we're doing, if we're doing an intersection improvement and certain major road work, we may incorporate some traffic calming measures also.
Yeah. Which is exactly what I thought you would say, but not everybody knows that. We have
If I
different
could
ways
just-
of getting the money to the projects that need to be done. And really, you guys have done a fantastic job of like targeting and getting the work done. And we can see that all over the city. Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair, if I could just quickly add on, the budget in the city budget for traffic calming was only started a couple years ago. We have tried to add to it. The ARPA money was to create a surge on these projects and really be able to push through and deal with some of the top priority projects. So that's what we've done with ARPA, and adding, Jim was in another $2 million into traffic calming. So we've been able to move forward on a bunch of things, as we've done with road work as well with the ARPA funds. Unfortunately, that will come to an end, and we'll have to come back to living within our city budget, and wherever we can find additional money, either through mitigation from projects, sometimes is used for intersection work, sometimes potentially for traffic calming. So there are other potential occasional funding sources, but in the end, it will be our city budget.
I have a few questions. This is Councilor Wright.
be
Okay,
a little unstable. I'm going to, let's see, I have Counselor Lucas followed by Counselor Greenberg.
actually, I
Chair,
have my,
Chair, Counselor Wright and Counselor Greenberg had their hands up way before me.
yeah,
Okay, that's not what my listing says, but thank you for being a gentleman. So who was up first? Counselor Wright?
I was, yep.
Okay, go ahead.
My first question about raised crosswalks, and I'm on the Franklin Working Group, and they're planning on doing that. And it was actually the first time I hear that the fire department is accepting raised crosswalks. And you mentioned in your presentation that we have them in other places. I know they were there a long time ago, but have we recently installed raised crosswalks? And how many, and how much does it cost? I like raised crosswalks.
If I can, yes, we have one at Zervis on Beethoven. At the top of the hill where we had a lot of speeding. It was part of the Zervis School Project, I believe. We leveraged some of those funds. It was extremely successful.
And how much does it cost for a raised
And I
crosswalk?
don't know.
That project was about 375,000. So a good example of how some of this work really is expensive. Usually when we change elevations, we're dealing with things like drainage. And that's where the costs come into play. It's not just making that raised table. It's everything around it. So that really pushes the cost up. But yes, that's a great one to go look at on Beethoven. That's one where it's a gradual incline, which the fire department is very happy with. We actually built that in our yard out of asphalt so they could physically drive a truck over it before it was approved. So that's what you'll be seeing going forward. So that's a real good one to look at.
Okay, so, and I think with the Franklin, it's part of the school budget, so it won't come out of your budget. So it sounds like we won't be getting a lot of those unless it's specifically directed funding, because would take up the whole year's budget for one.
Yes, that's true, Counselor. Usually intersection projects, and again, as Jonathan mentioned, mitigation a lot of times will allow us to install items like that.
Okay, and how much does it cost for a traffic count? For, like you said, 48, 72 hours, roughly?
Well, for a single street, we can do that in-house. We have the equipment, as Ned mentioned. Adrian is out there all the time doing traffic counts as part of this process is gathering that data.
Okay. And then.
Do you know does everyone know what mitigation means? So mitigation is part of the land use process where we ask a developer who's making a large development to pay into a fund that then fixes some of our intersections.
And
Go
then
ahead.
that's only on special permits, not by right projects.
Right.
My next question is about crashes. I know.
Counselor Wright, that's not true, actually.
Oh, really?
Nope. So by right projects pay I&I fees as well.
Okay. Yep. Okay. About crashes. Not everyone reports crashes. I didn't realize you were supposed to report crashes. So the crash report is actually an undercount. Do you have an estimate of how much that is undercounted?
There you're asking the wrong person, Counselor Wright. We'd want to ask the police department that because they're the ones that collect that data.
Okay.
And they've told me that one of the reasons we have a heavy count of crashes at near Newton Wellesley Hospital is that any damage over $1,000, if you want your insurance company to cover it, you have to report. So we actually get quite a few out of there that are really just from the parking lot.
Okay, and I was going through, and maybe I can take it offline. I was looking through the other data, the 1,300 pages, and I just wanted a brief overview of how to read those documents, but we could do this offline. I could call you tomorrow instead of going through that. I have some specific questions, but right now, Vice Chair Downs wanted just general questions, and so I'll come back later when you want specific questions. Thanks.
Okay, we have Counselor Greenberg and Counselor Lucas.
Oh, thank you, Vice Chair. I had a question about the mitigation. When a project does offer some mitigation funds to traffic calming, does that move the ranking of that intersection or area up, or does it change? Will that project come before another project, even though the other project has maybe a higher points? Just because they're getting the mitigation funds? How does that work?
That could be the case, Counselor, because usually the language in the special permit, or even if it's a by right in the mitigation, specifies where those funds can be used. So if the funds are just sitting there, they usually sit in account with the comptroller. If they're sitting there, we will access those. So yes, it would jump ahead in some cases.
Okay, okay. And then once the traffic calming project is complete, does the Transportation Department go back and reanalyze the data to see if there's been a definite improvement because of what's been done to that intersection? So we know what works and what doesn't work?
Yes, we do, and it's you know, a relatively limited sample so far, but again, we're getting, you know, sort of many of these being completed and coming online. So we will be collecting the after data as well. But you know, as an example, the commissioner was talking about Beethoven, and we did before and after counts, and the total daily traffic dropped by about 250 cars. And the 85th percentile speed northbound dropped from 36 miles per hour to 25, and southbound it dropped from 36 miles per hour to 28. So those are really significant drops.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome, Mr. Cott, to Newton.
Thank you.
Right, all set? Counselor Lucas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a questions for DPW. In the attachment to the agenda, the last page where you have 125-24 and you have 220 top traffic calming priorities. Where on the city's website can I find that?
It is not posted yet because it is still in draft form. It's under internal review, but we thought it was appropriate to this agenda to share it and provide a preview.
We
Okay,
do
thanks.
have last year's.
Yeah.
You normally, Counselor, you can find it under the Public Works section, the Transportation Division. It will be in there, the traffic calming report with all the ranks and rated projects. We can send out the link tomorrow also to everyone to make it easier for you to find.
Okay, yeah, I must okay, all right. I think I see it. This is traffic calming on Watertown Street. You have Eddie and Elliott, that four-way stop. Have you seen any improvements in terms of speeds, crashes, near crashes?
We have definitely, that's one that we've been looking at very closely. You know, there's been a little bit of a learning curve out there. I think there have been there's been some confusion about the on Watertown Street about the presence of the four-way stop. We actually just put large variable message signboards out again, now that, you know, hopefully we're past snow season, to give drivers an advance warning that a stop is coming. But we're kind of waiting for the spring to collect volume and speed after data. And in terms of crashes, it's gonna, you know, need to be, you know, a while, you know, at least a year or so to, you know, really be able to get a large enough sample to see whether there's been a meaningful impact on the crash rates.
Can I
Okay.
jump in on there since?
Go ahead.
So I get the emails, or Ward 3, we get the emails every time there's a crash there. So there is less crashes, and we're getting a lot less emails on that. And I'm assuming that's less crashes. It is slowing down traffic. It's not the huge backup disaster that people thought. Maybe 5, 6, 8 cars. I go through here a couple of times a day. Maybe 8 cars will be like the peak. The signs, the stop sign in the middle of the road, I think is really important. They just came back out because some people still will blow through it. I don't see the signs, the signboards addressing that there is a stop sign ahead. I don't see that out there right now. I just went through there just before this meeting. I don't think it's there.
Oh.
The signboard is out on Washington Street. And that's another issue we can talk about a little bit on that one, but I don't think it's there. But the four-way stop, I appreciate it, and I do bike on there, and that's nice too, because it is slowing down traffic.
All right. Well, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Okay, thanks very much. So do we have another are we done with questions? Or Councilor Watt-Wright, do you have some follow-ups, or shall we move to another presentation first? If we
Well,
have
I
one.
have specific questions on some of the things there in specific
Okay.
areas. Do you want me to go through those?
Why don't we first see what the administration has for us, and then if they're done, let's go ahead.
Okay.
Shall we
thank
do
you.
that?
Yep.
All right.
Uh,
So I interrupted you, Mr. Codd, so let's, if you have more for us,
I
let's
mean,
go ahead.
I would say that's kind of, you know, the approach that we take.
Mhm.
I can share this again. And so again, these are the completed and ongoing projects. This is the new ranking. I can talk through like a few of these if counselors have questions about these. Happy to discuss them. You know, some of the top streets that we identified are Adams Street in Nonantham between Washington Street and Watertown Street. Dedham Street between Winchester and Walnut. Linwood Avenue, Crafts to Adams. Craft Street, it's from California to Linwood. Tremont Street, Langley Road between Glen and Boylston, Walnut Street, Mill Street to Cabot Street, Watertown Street, from Crafts to Adams, Waltham Street, Crafts to the Waltham City line, and the entirety of Vine Street. That's the top 10.
Great. So why don't we open those up for questions on completed projects or almost completed projects? And then I'll also then I think we might want to entertain some questions on the other two items on our agenda besides the traffic calming report, which I think gives us a really nice overview of kind of where some of the issues are. So counselors on the committee or off the committee, if you have questions, I see Counselor Wright followed by Counselor Lucas.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I see Lowell Ave has been completed basically between Washington and Com Ave, another street I use a lot. The road markings though, are you gonna do those? I mean, they're pretty worn.
They're
not
scheduled for April 9th.
okay, great. And I know a lot of people have complained to me about Washington Street and road markings.
It's on the same weekend job.
Okay. And are you going to do the road markings also? Specifically, they're complaining about where the pilot program's going to go because that'll change, but are you going to still do that?
We'll be refreshing that in water-based paint, which will allow us to maintain them in a slightly less costly way than if we were to do full thermoplastic paint,
Okay, great.
or significantly less costly way, actually.
So both of those will be in April, weather permitting.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And a couple residents have contacted me. So 50%, out of the top 14 high priority, 50% is north to the Pike, which is my area. And one of the concerns is on Adams Street, which is number 1, and Craft Street is number 5 for heavily used traffic. There's right now being proposed 2 big projects, about 1,000 cars a day that's being proposed to go onto Craft Street. Are you taking that into account when you're going to do traffic calming or whatever else that's going to do? I mean, the lights need to be, re-signalized. I'm sometimes, trying to cross onto Washington Street. I'm backed up past the DPW yard and that. So are you taking that into account, the new projects, as you're doing this?
So we haven't assumed any additional traffic based on those projects, but again, this is, the traffic calming program is just a part of what's happening. There's also the development review and mitigation process, and we are working with with planning in the lead. We work with the developers. They conduct traffic impact studies. The city hires a peer review consultant to assist us in our review of those traffic studies. We identify what those impacts are, as well as ways to mitigate them. We will be working with the developer and their consultants to identify ways to improve traffic operations at some of those critical intersections. Hopefully, get some of those intersections to operate more efficiently and address some of those traffic operations issues, while also working with the developer to identify opportunities for multimodal improvements. It could be could include traffic calming measures like the ones we've been discussing.
So the developer says, well, there's things that you can do right now, like traffic timing. And I don't know if where that comes into, especially at Craft and Washington Street, because at times it gets really backed up quite almost to Watertown Street.
Yeah, and in some cases, signals can be retimed. In other cases, you need new equipment. It might be a new traffic signal controller. It might be new software to help the signal more efficiently allocate green time. It could be detection equipment that tells the traffic signal when queues are building on different approaches. So it's often improvements that are sort of significant projects and beyond sort of just typical day-to-day maintenance.
Okay. And then my next question from another resident, on Nahanton, down on the south side, and they're in Nahanton Woods condo, and it's there's a heavy volume of traffic in Nahanton Street caused by the Kendrick Street off ramps. This presents a dangerous situation as they try to exit into heavy traffic. And they had some suggestions. Synchronize the lights at Nahanton and Winchester with Dedham and Nahanton. And if timed together, they can allow a break, allowing traffic exiting from 210 Nahanton to have a break of time to do so. Permanently keep the exit and entry from the JCC.
So Counselor Wright, can I suggest that we save that kind of very specific set of suggestions and traffic calming discussion for one-on-one?
Okay. So is
I
there
understand there's traffic on Manhattan Street, there's traffic on a lot of streets, and we're kind of looking at the overview, not at each specific street and intersection here.
Okay. So something like that for timing, I mean, this would Nahanton be something on this priority ranking sheet? And I don't know if I even see it there.
So-
Nahanton is part of the larger, it is a street segment that we have analyzed, actually the entirety of Nahanton, both the eastern and western sides. It's just not a high ranking or top 25 location that would appear on this table.
Okay. Okay, I'll take it offline. Thank you. That's all from me
Thank
for
you.
right now.
I did
thank you.
just want to, if I could just note that
Sure.
the city did pursue a MassDOT Complete Streets grant for Nahanton Street to build a sidewalk along the northern side of Nahanton Street. We were not successful, but we are planning to possibly reapply for the next round of grant funding for Complete Streets. So
That's excellent news.
we are aware of needs down on Nahanton Street.
Yep. Great, and thank you, Counselor Wright. Counselor Lucas, I think you're next, followed by Counselor Greenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some more questions for DPW. I'm going to
Okay.
repeat a question that Counselor Wright said, as I didn't hear the answer. When is those markings on Washington Street going to be repainted?
Sure. So the contractor has dates reserved, weather dependent, but for 4-1 to 4-3, as well as from 4-4 to 4-9
Okay, thank you.
as the rain date.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that was helpful. And then just looking at this 2024 priority ranking, I mean, you have Adams Street, Linwood, Crafts, Waltham, Watertown, Crafts, Watertown again. These are all pretty much in the same neighborhood, the same area. Also want to throw in Central Ave, which is right around the corner from DPW on Craft Street. Just big picture, what are we what is DPW thinking for this entire large neighborhood for traffic calming?
You know, the map might be helpful, that visual here, Mr. Cod.
Yeah. Oh, go on. Sorry.
No, please.
Oh, yeah. So it's that dark red, or dark
Right.
purple. I can't tell what that is, but the dark color, pretty much north of the Mass Pike. Just big picture. What is the plan here?
Well, I think what we're we're seeing here is, you know, there's a lot of traffic. You know, there's the this is fed by the Pike, and I think it reflects a lot of you know, traffic that goes between the Pike and the northern part of Newton, as well as between the Pike and Watertown and Waltham, as well as other cities. But you know, I think it's you know, we need to continue to work to make multimodal improvements, because more and more people are walking and biking at the same time that there's you know, significant traffic volumes, and we need to make sure that the traffic is still able to flow efficiently.
Okay, and then just, do you think traffic will ever get so bad where it's going to be, we're not at that point where it's unbearable and you can't get out of your driveway and it takes you, you know, 20 minutes just to go east to west and west to east north of the Pike, but just how many more cars do you think can this section of the city get?
Well, I mean, it's certainly not a you know, an infinite amount. I think you know, it's striking a balance too among the different modes. You know, as there is you know, sort of more development, more density, there's more travel, but with the density also comes the ability for more trips to be made on foot or by bike. Shorter trips are more practical for that, and if we're able to make the roadways more safer, more appealing for all modes, and in particular vulnerable road users, then we can satisfy a lot of those shorter trips without people having to get into their cars.
And I think also you get what you build for. And on the north side of the street, we built a lot of streets to go fast, and for car throughput, and that's what we're getting. That's also what we're getting down on Manhattan Street, where we got an off ramp into Manhattan Street. So and we have to ask what we want to build for. We do also understanding that when you build for car traffic, even if people in Newton aren't driving, we get the people who want to get through, who will also go through Newton. Councilor Lucas, are you all set? You want to have another question?
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay. Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to see Adams Street is ranked number 1. Could you tell me, Mr. Cobb, when will the design be presented of what will be done in the time frame?
I'm not certain about that, because this is really hot off the presses. We were just at the end of the prioritization process, and we haven't sort of begun, you know, the design process, you know, or really even sort of the you know, conceptual or you know, engaging with a design consultant or anything like that. So it's a little ways away. And again, we do have we do have sort of a lot of projects that are already in the pipeline that we're building or we're designing or we're trying to get those off the ground.
Okay, so you'll keep us updated on when this will come online, and will you have a community meeting to present the ideas or to the council? How does it work?
So for traffic calming projects, I know that we do engage with we inform the council and we engage with local neighborhood groups. I'm going to now plead a little bit my inexperience and say I don't quite know every step, and will defer to the commissioner.
Yeah, counselor, we'll always include the ward counselors and also the immediate neighborhood, depending on what the treatment is. Especially if we do something like a raised table, we do a lot of outreach for that because that's a real impact to the area. But we will definitely loop you all in. Most things that we install have to go before public facilities, so it would come there. And possibly here also to PS&T. And we're happy to provide regular updates. Again, Ned is in month 2 here, so we apologize if we don't have all those answers, but Adrian's well-versed in this, as is Isaac also. So we have strong support there, and we'll be working, again, this is the draft. It's all ready to go, but we wanted to show you the latest and greatest and know that this is moving forward. And we'll get this up on the website, and then we'll communicate our schedule as we move along.
Oh, thank you so much, Commissioner. I really have to give some kudos to the neighborhood. Many of the abutters of Adams Street really advocated for this. And I'm just so happy that their advocacy worked and they're ranked #1, and these changes will be coming soon. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is that Councilor Greenberg?
Yes, thank you.
All right, I think we can take the map down. Any other questions or requests? All right. So I have to say, I think this is a huge step forward.
Oh, I just have a quick
yes?
question. I'm sorry.
Got a quick question. Go ahead.
So how easy or hard is it to request to get some traffic counts on a bunch of different streets? It sounds like it can be done in-house. Who do I go through, or who do I talk to, or we come up with a little bit of a plan, or what?
So for
That's the
for
transportation
resident
division
requests?
counselor. Oh, sorry, Adrian, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say for resident requests, we're happy we stay on top of our 311 requests. So we're happy to take them that way, or from city councilors if they want to reach out directly to Ned, Isaac, or myself. We're happy to do so.
Okay. And traffic counts also include speeds then too?
Speeds and volumes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, yes, we can, the city can do targeted counts, targeted speed counts, targeted volume counts. I don't think we do look at things on the citywide level, because we get a lot of stuff that bubbles up from our requests. But I know that for a number of years, the Transportation Advisory Group and others have said, let's start collecting data around crashes, and then let's start as a city creating our own priority lists based on, excuse me, I got a phone call in the background, based on that data, rather than just on resident complaints and resident advocacy. And that's somewhere I'm hoping we can go, but just getting this report out and having it so beautifully laid out and mapped is huge. This is a really positive step forward, and it gives our residents some certainty and some assurance that yes, they've been heard, and here's what here's how here's how we've taken their request, and then that this is why they might not see Radcliffe Road done this year, when we've got a Craft Street or an Adams Street that is, a much higher crash volume, much higher speeds, much higher vehicle volume. That's ahead of them. And that just makes it easier for us as counselors to, first of all, have something to point people at, to say, here's where you can find out where your request is and why it's where it is. But we can also look at it and say, oh, wow, I thought I thought traffic was bad on my street or this neighbor's street. Now I can see that there's this other street. And I think Eddie in Watertown certainly has popped up a number of times. But here's this other street really needs this. And I've seen some great advances in the last year or two or three in making some really high crash sites much safer. And I look forward to that continuing. I also want to give kudos to the DPW and the traffic division in particular about trying things before we finalize them. Eddie in Watertown is one example where complaints were definitely heard and responded to. Flex posts were put in. That seemed to work. And then they looked at a slightly more permanent solution. That didn't seem to do the trick. And then we came back with some additional things to calm things down. So it's trying stuff, measuring it, and if it works, moving forward. If it doesn't work, coming back with a different treatment. I really think that's a very positive, data-driven way of going. So congratulations on that. Anything further? Some of you have docketed 127.24 and 128.24. I want to make sure you're heard. If you had something specific you wanted out. I'm going on.
I have
Councilor Wright?
I have a question.
Sure.
We did and this was maybe a year or two ago. I'm not sure where it is. We did a temporary speed bumps on the road, and was either on Mill Street or Newtonville Ave or something like that.
It was on Grant.
Grant, okay,
Grant.
somewhere in that area. So what came of it? Is it something that we can use, or they decided no, not, or what? And I know it was only for the summer. It was more, or non-winter time. It
was a trial. Yeah.
Yeah. So what came of the trial? What was the end results? Yes, we can do this, or no, or?
I can speak to that. So the maintenance challenges we found to be pretty large, particularly when it comes to installation. The temporary speed bumps had to be installed quite deep, and then we get into issues with the pavement, the materials with the pavement. In the case of Grant, we did find a rock ledge under the roadway surface. That kind of complicated the install and takedown of those speed bumps. Additionally, we received multiple resident complaints about the noise of tires hitting these speed bumps all day.
So follow up.
So is it,
six,
so we're not going to
perhaps,
do it anymore?
how do we move forward on Mill Street? Because I'm sorry, on Grant Street, because that is a high speedway. Do we have another?
Sure, we're
option
actually
there?
installing temporary speed bumps on Albemarle this coming spring. They're of a slightly different type, so if that goes well, it's something that we can keep in mind for future installations.
All set, Councilor Wright?
Yes, thank you.
All right. I will entertain a motion to either hold or NAN all three of these. Anyone want to take them individually, or can we do all three at once?
I'll move to hold all three.
All right, motion from Counselor Greenberg to hold 127-24, 125-24, and 128-24. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And that's an aye from me. That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for coming and for your time.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.